We welcome you once again to today, God's Holy Sabbath Day, the seventh day of the week. Here in Santa Rosa, California, we are aware of God's blessings to us as His people. The only day of the week that He blessed and sanctified for those who will worship Him and obey His laws as He had commanded us. So we greet you once again in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, who came and died for us, so that we may also have life if we obey Him and follow in His footsteps. We missed out last week as we were committed to other things, but we hope that whatever message we have for you today will be able to help all of us understand the critical time that we are in today. The topic for today is the feat of iron and clay that we read about in Daniel chapter 2, that image that Nebuchadnezzar, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, dreamt about during the days of Daniel. So our topic, we will focus in on that part of that image right at his feet. If we can quickly just go back to the dream that Nebuchadnezzar, King Nebuchadnezzar, dreamt. That night he went to sleep, and this was the dream that troubled him. He saw this great image with a head of gold and a body of silver, thighs of bronze or brass, and then legs of iron. And then right at the bottom, the feet of this image was a mixture of iron and clay. That was the image that he saw. And then the dream went on a little further, but this is where we will focus on today. Not on the whole image, but right down here at its feet. As as in the topic of today's study, the feet of iron and clay. So we will focus in on this this feet. If we can just quickly go through this image, the head of gold represented the kingdom, Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom of Babylon, and it ruled from 605 BC to 539 BC. That was when 539 BC was when Persia, led by Cyrus, invaded Babylon. There's a very interesting story about that invasion, that they went through the river. They dried up the river, and the soldiers came in and invaded Babylon. And after Babylon, which ruled from after Persia, which ruled from 539 BC, this was before Christ, to 331, so it ruled for about 200 years, came Greece and Alexander the Great. His kingdom ruled from 331 BC to 168. So about 150 years altogether, 170. Then after Greece was the Iron Kingdom of Rome, represented by the legs of iron. And this kingdom, Rome, led from 168 BC, after conquering Greece, to 476 AD. This was the longest period of rule by any kingdom that's described in here, these four kingdoms. So it ruled for over 500, close to 600 years, from 168 BC to 476. So it's about 600 years altogether. AD, after Christ. You remember when Christ was living in Palestine at that time, and he was alive on this earth, it was Rome that was ruling in Palestine at that time. King Herod, Pontius Pilate, these were all the representatives of Rome in Palestine. So that was when Christ came to being. But we've gone past that time. Christ was alive on this earth 2,000 years ago. And we are now in that feet. That's why we are focusing on in that feet. And it says that it is made of iron and clay. It's a mixture of iron and clay. It's the era of the divided nations of Western Europe, as it says in that diagram. And it started from 476 till the end. And you see that the feet is divided up into two portions. One is the feet, and then it comes to the 10 toes. 10 toes. So somehow this kingdom, this divided kingdom, in the end will be come together as 10 different nations. Just according to this dream, if we just think of it. So one foot coming in and divided into 5, the other into 5. So these divided nations will somehow group themselves together and come out as 10 kingdoms, represented by the toes. Have that come into place yet? No, we have not seen that yet. So that is, as a student of prophecy, is something that we should be looking forward to, thinking of when will these 10 kingdoms come. So we live in a very interesting time. According to the prophecies, the prophets of old wished that they were alive this time, because they were shown this era either by dreams or they were by visions, and they wanted to be part of that. They've already died. They died long ago, but they've left what they've seen in the books that we read. You will not be enlightened if you ignore this book. If you leave it collecting dust on the shelf, you will not be enlightened. Let's see what this book tells us today about this divided nation. This is the map of that area, the known area of that time. Rome's rule came to an end in 476 AD, after Christ, 400 years after Christ. That's when Rome finally came to an end. Remember when Jesus was alive? the Jewish people, the Jewish nation, wanted him to lead them against the Roman Empire. Because Rome was their leader. Everything that they do was controlled from Rome. Because the representatives of Rome were right there amongst them. So the Jewish nation, when Jesus began claiming that he was the Messiah, they thought that he was going to lead them against this Roman rule. But that did not happen. 476 years later, as we've seen in those dates, Rome was still in power. And Rome came to an end in 476 AD, when those barbarian nations that it had ignored, it had not considered a threat to them, took over, and the end of the Roman Empire came into being in 476. So if you look at this map, this is all the areas that Rome controlled during that time, from Western Europe through to Palestine, North Africa, Egypt. So those were the areas, and you can imagine when we were studying Christianity, the spread of Christianity, these were the same area that Christianity, when the apostles, during the apostolic times, they spread, they were chased away from Jerusalem, and they spread all over the place. And this was all the place covered by them, where they took the gospel to, the story of Jesus. Very same place. But now, Rome is in control of all these places. 476 AD was the end of that Roman Empire, brought down to its knees by those barbarian tribes of the north that came down and overtook the Roman Empire. Let's get into the Bible, Daniel chapter 2, about this dream. Daniel chapter 2, verse 40. This is what it says. And the fourth kingdom, you remember the first kingdom, second kingdom, third kingdom, fourth kingdom, the kingdom of iron, Rome. Okay, let's get back to the verse. The fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as such as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. So the iron, you know, is the hardest metal around, and it can be used to break things up. So that was the character of this kingdom, the Roman kingdom. It ruled by force. It used force to gain its power over the people at that time. So it covered all those places that we saw on that map. Verse 41 says, And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, after that the legs was the feet and the toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron. The kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it the strength of the iron, the strength of the iron. For as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. 42 says, And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. That feet that we had talked about, if you see in this, mixture of miry clay and iron. So it was partly strong and partly weak. Weak is the clay and strong is the iron. So it says in that last verse that when you saw that feet and toes, the kingdom shall be divided. They don't mix together, these two, the iron and clay. So it will be a divided nation. Unlike the other nation, it was only made of iron, or made of brass, the thighs, or silver, the chest, or head of gold. It was only one metal. This, the feet, were made of iron and clay. It was a mixture, so these two could not mix together. That's why it was a divided nation. All these nations, these European nations, sprang up at this time, and they were all their own different kingdoms, a divided nation. So what happens? 42 says, and as the toes and feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. The European divided nations, some were real strong nations, while others were weak. So that's exactly what we are seeing today. From 447 AD after Christ till today, these are the nations in that area of the world that some were strong and some were weak. If we look at that map of that area, these are the nations in that. We have Spain, France, Luxembourg, Austria, Hungary, Italy, Bulgaria. It'll be interesting if you have a chance to travel through these nations, and you'll see that even though they were just close to each other, they have different languages, they have different currencies. They were a nation of their own. This is the divided nation. The feet of iron and clay. They never mix. This was a divided nation, beginning from 476 AD, when those barbarian tribes from the north invaded Rome and took over control, removed the control from Rome, and they built up their own nations, setting them free to build their own nations, as we can see depicted there on that map. Feet of the iron and clay, it's a divided Rome or Europe. Let us just bring ourselves into perspective by looking at this timeline. 476 AD, that's when Rome was invaded by those northern tribes and was weakened, and the nations divided. During that time, let's see what else have we already studied that took place during this time. We know that from 538 AD, what happened? The beginning of the Dark Ages, when papal Rome this time, not pagan Rome. Now it's the papacy of Rome that came into play. And we know that in this year, Emperor Justinian gave the power, the civil power, to the Pope. And he became both the church or the religious power, and he also had the civil power. That began the era of the Dark Ages, beginning from 538 AD to 1798, a total of 1,260 years, as prophesied in the Bible. I hope that these numbers ring a bell in one of our past studies that we've already gone through. So 538 after 76 AD, this was one of the prophetic dates that we've come across. We also know of around 700 AD, we already studied this, when Islam was born. You remember when we studied about the ex-Jesuit priest, he talked to us about Rome, who went down to Arabia, where the descendants of Ishmaels were, and started schooling this young person, Muhammad, and he became the first prophet of Islam. It was around this time. So it was after the breaking up of the Roman Empire. So 538 AD, papacy became both the religious and the civil power. 700 AD, the papacy started off the Islamic religion. This was all done to counter the spread of Christianity. Papal Rome was fighting hard to stop the spread of Christianity, but was not successful. So it went down to Arabia, where the descendants of Ishmael were, and brought this man up, Muhammad, so that he can start this new religion of Islam to help the Roman church counter the Christian church spreading throughout the area. And then we have 1776. What do we know about this date? We already studied about the birth of the United States of America. 776 is the date. It's the Declaration of Independence, the birth of that second beast. Remember the two beasts of Revelation 13? The first beast came out of the seas. The second beast came out of the land. America came out in an empty area, in a vacant land, while Europe, the first beast, which was Rome, papal Rome, came out in a populated area, Europe. So that's the time, 776, when this nation, the United States of America, came to being. Then the next date that we have there is 1798. Soon after the birth of the United States of America, what happened in 1798? The papal system of Rome was taken down. So as one power was going down, the other power was beginning to rise. Papal system going down, the United States of America rising up. The exchange of baton in there. Then we come to 1929. 1929. What happened in this year? Remember, 1798, the papal system was brought down to its knees by General Berthier of Rome. That was the time of Napoleon, General Berthier of France. Napoleon was beginning to rise up in power in France, and he saw the papal system was the only power that will block him. So he sent his General Berthier up, go down to Rome and take captive the Pope of Rome. And that's exactly what he did in 1798. That's why the papal system came to an end. But in 1929, Mussolini, the Prime Minister of Italy, gave back that civil power even though he did not give back this whole of Italy under the papal system, he told the Pope at that time that you can have your own country, your own state, right there in Rome. 1929, they've just celebrated their 80th birthday in, when was it, 1929 plus 80, I think it was 2009, and they celebrated their 80th birthday. Since 1929, they came back to power. And today, this beast is the most powerful and the most prominent person under the sun, the papal system, the Pope of Rome, or Pope Francis as we know him today. And then the year 2018, that's the year we are in today. That's the year we are in today. How far are we from the end? And when is the end? It says before the end, those 10 toes will have to come into prominence here. So we are now in the feet. If I can just go back to this feet. We've seen that right from the beginning here, 476, things have happened along the way. Now we are right somewhere here. We're still that divided nation. But the toes are quickly coming up. And how many toes are there? 10 toes. Very soon there will be 10 kingdoms that will be all over, that will rule all over the world. And how will that happen? Is it possible? How did God know of this, this prophecy? How did he come to know of this, what was going to happen, and has put it there for only those who will study the Bible to realize what is actually happening. We've gone through that timeline. So it has been 1,542 years since the fall of Rome, the Roman Empire, pagan Rome. Till today, it's 1,542 years. We are still at the feet of the image of the divided kingdom. When will we reach the toes or the 10 kingdoms? When will that happen? It's still in the future because we still are a divided world today. USA is still here, Europe and all those nations are still there. We have the Middle Eastern nations, African nations, we have the Asian nations. But how will those 10 toes come into play in this story of the world as depicted, as shown to King Nebuchadnezzar through his dreams in that image? We are right at the toes. In Daniel 2:43 to 44, we'll just go back there and read. It says, "And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men." So this is talking about a particular group. "But they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay." Let's read that again. "And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay." We've seen that. We've gone through that nation, the divided nation. And it says, these people, they shall not mingle, they shall mingle themselves, they shall, with the seed of man. So among the nations will these people be there, and they will be mingling among men. But what's important about them? It says here, they shall not cleave one to another. even as iron is not mixed with clay. So these people will not cleave, will not be dragged into the world of the seed of man. And it says in verse 44, say, and in the days of these kings, which kings are there? Is this talking about now? The 10 kings of the toes, which is still in the future. It's already telling us about what will happen during that time when these 10 kings come in. In the days of these 10 kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. So a kingdom will be set up during the time of the 10 kingdoms. Another kingdom that God will set up. The 10 kingdoms are the kingdoms of this world. While this world set up these 10 kingdoms, verse 44 tells us, God will set up another kingdom, and which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all those 10 kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. The kingdom that God is setting up will destroy all those 10 kingdoms that this world is setting up through those 10 toes of that dream, of that image in Nebuchadnezzar's dream. So, while the 10 kingdoms is being formed by man, God begins to set up a kingdom that will last forever. This is the 10 kingdoms that is being set up by man. The division of the world by the United Nations. You can read there at the bottom, it says, the emerging new world order and 10 economic unions. The 10 emerging new world, or the emerging new world order and the 10 economic unions. This is the setup by men. The 10 toes of that image is exactly what's written here, coded in different colors. Those 10 different areas are the 10 toes of that image. So you see, North America, you have South America, you have the African Union, and then you have the European, and goes on to right at the other end where Fiji is the Oceania region, together with Australia, New Zealand, and Papua New Guinea, and the other outlying islands of the Pacific. So this is the 10 kingdoms represented by the 10 toes that man, or this world, is setting up. And verse 44, as we just read, while this is being set up, what is God setting up? He's setting up his own one kingdom that will last forever. So, 10 kingdoms against this one kingdom. And that one kingdom, remember it says that those people will not cleave one unto the other. Amongst the seed of man will these people be. They will mingle amongst the seed of man. That's talking about you and me. Amongst this sinful world, you and me are expected to stand out. Are we doing that at the moment? I'm sure we realize that we are still weak. We are still being attracted by the sinfulness of this world. We still speak their language. We still do whatever this world does. We are still being dragged. But that verse says, these people will not will mingle amongst the seed of man, but they will not cleave unto the worldly. So, if we are still falling into sin, we better relook at our lives. I'm sure we know our own weaknesses. I do. I still fail in many things that I do, in things that I say, in things that I think about. So we are still cleaving one unto the other, cleaving unto the world. We should get out and be like those that the verse 43 tells us about, that this group of people will be among the seed of man, but they will act completely different. What does the spirit of prophecy say about this? Mingle churchcraft and statecraft. I think this is found in manuscript 63 of 1899, paragraph 30. It says, "We have come to a time when God's sacred work is represented by the feet of the image, in which the iron was mixed with the miry clay." God has a people, and I hope that these people includes you and me. God has a people, a chosen people, whose discernment must be sanctified. We should be sanctified, man. When we fail that, we know that we are not God's chosen people. Who must not become unholy by laying upon the foundation of wood, hay, and stubble. That's a world. Weak foundation. We should be founded on the rock himself, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. So, I plead amongst to everyone who is listening, we need, including me, we need to be different, completely different from the world. We need to be sanctified, and that should be found in our actions, in the words that we use, in the things that we say. Our actions speaks much louder than words. So we should relook at our own lives, I included, regarding this. If we need to be part of that chosen people, we need to be sanctified. It continues to say, every soul who is loyal to the commandment of God will see that the distinguishing feature of our faith is the seventh-day Sabbath. You know why that is? That is a distinguishing feature. It is because in these last days we've also talked about this. The enforcement of the Sunday, the day Sunday, the first day of the week. It will be enforced by this world. It will be enforced by this world. And it says, it would stand in the strength of God and in defense of the faith once delivered to the saints. But statesmen will uphold the spurious Sabbath. You who would like to follow the commandments of God would try to keep holy his Sabbath day. But it says here that the statesman, the government, the state, they will uphold the spurious Sabbath. And which one is the spurious Sabbath? The Sunday, the first day of the week. And will mingle their religious faith with the observance of this child of the papacy. The spurious Sabbath is the child of the papacy. It was the making of Rome. But who will help enforce it? The state, the government, those 10 kings that we are looking at. This is when that will be enforced. When these 10 kings come into play, make sure that you should be looking forward to persecution. If you want to keep the holy commandments of God, you will be persecuted. Some of us will die because of that. Placing the spurious Sabbath above the Sabbath which the Lord hath sanctified and blessed, setting it apart for man to keep holy, as a sign between him and his people to 1,000 generations. That's what's written in the Bible. It is a sign between me and my people. That was God saying that. This Sabbath is a sign between me and my people. Today, this is what we are seeing. Church and state coming together. We see here President Trump surrounded by church ministers of all denominations. And here Trump is signing an executive order that frees religious leaders from the IRS hold on them. The law before this executive order was that religious leaders, when they register their organizations as a 501c3 or as a non-profit organization, they are exempted from tax. But they have, on one condition, they are not to be involved in preaching politics in their different churches, different religion. It could be any religion, not only Christian. So Trump has taken away that power from the state or from IRS to remove their 501c3 status if they begin to talk politics inside the church, inside their own religious temples. So President Trump, so you see the state, government, and the church are coming together. On a global basis, this is it. The president of the most powerful nation on this earth, or the representative of that second beast of Revelation 13, which is the USA, and the first beast, which was the papal system, they are here. So it says churchcraft and statecraft coming together. So President Trump is someone that I admire. He's a straight talker, but he is not realizing what the churches are doing, because he is not enlightened by these prophecies that you and me, the prophecies that we study, is not one of his strength. He does not know of this. He is not aware of those 10 toes. So he is aware that the United Nations is dividing the world up into 10 regions, but he is not aware of the fact that a few thousand years ago it was shown to Nebuchadnezzar that image will have that feet of miry clay and iron mixed together, but then comes the 10 toes. We are right next to the 10 toes. We journeyed through the feet right to the edge of the 10 toes right now. The world, as we've seen, has been divided up into 10 regions. The 10 toes. Very soon, things will fall into place, and you and I should expect persecution not only from the state, but from the church itself. Your church, if you refuse to do what it orders you, your church will go against you. If you choose to think independently and say, no, I will follow God, your church leaders, you've seen them here, right there with the state. Just like the time of Jesus, those Jewish church leaders sent Jesus to Pontius Pilate with their decision that he should be crucified on the cross. They've already made the decision. The state, what happened? Pontius Pilate said, bring me a bowl of water, I'll wash. I don't see any guilt in this man. But they shouted, nail him to the cross, nail him to the cross. Free Barabbas for us. Nail him to the cross. You see, the power of the church with the state. President Trump is not realizing that when the vote from the churches, from the evangelical movement in America, voted for him, that's the power. He's saying that no one funded me, but he went after the votes. That's the power that will be forcing him to do whatever they want. That's the power that the church leaders will say, if you don't do what we want, we will withdraw our people from voting for you. You see? Even though he's saying, money-wise, I did not ask money from these people. I did not ask money from NRA. I did not ask money from whichever millionaire. Because I use my own money, so I don't listen to anybody. But he will listen to the church leaders. Because they are the ones who brought vote to him. Okay? So I hope that we are seeing things in reality. Whatever is happening today, this world is close to those 10 toes of that image. And we should realize that. We will match this up with the prophecies in Revelation 13, 14, 15, and we'll see that they all tie up together. God had foreseen all these things happening in these last days, right from those times. And he told his man, write it down. For the people who live at the end will need to be informed of what will happen during their lifetime. So I pray that whatever little we've shared with you today will help us make the right decisions when we have to during the time we live in now. May God bless you. Let us pray.